Welcome. I appreciate you're interested in this topic, tokenization in Africa. To me, it is a very important topic. And to start, I would like to say I feel very privileged to be here in Vilnius, being the fintech hub of Europe, which I wasn't really that aware of before I came. But it's like more than 280 licensed fintechs. That's quite a number. But let's focus on this. One of the most important decisions I took in my life wasn't a decision on business or on a company or corporate, but it was a decision back in 1991 when I decided to enroll in the Kellogg MBA program, which I started in 1992. And when I was at Kellogg, I got to know a classmate. That's a picture from 1992. When I still had some hair, blonde, curly hair. I look somewhat different now. When I started at Kellogg, I got to know a classmate of mine, Sven-Roger, a trained architect from South Africa. We spent a lot of time together. And over many case studies at night and discussions whether South African or German wine is better, we had a promise we made to each other. And we said, sometime in the future, we're going to use the skills we learned at Kellogg, and we're going to do something useful, meaningful with it. We had no clue where that was going to take us. This is like 30 years ago. Now, fast forward 30 years, let me give you a little background on the two of us. My path took me back to Germany, my home country, and I spent most of my professional career working as a CFO of SME tech companies. I raised a lot of money, private markets, public markets. I took 2 or 3 companies public. I founded Germany's second SPAC back in 2010. I was always thinking about shareholder value, growth plans, exits, multiples, all that capital market stuff. That was at my core. While Stein went back to South Africa, his home country, and he devoted his entire life to real estate development, and for the last 10, 15 years, primarily or predominantly to affordable housing and social housing. South Africa has a huge challenge. Approximately 20% of the population, 11 million people, live in shacks. Oops, didn't mean to go there. Live in shacks like these. No water, no electricity, hardly anything, but they pay rent. So he started investing in that business, and in 2019, at our 25-year Kellogg reunion, we met again, we had a discussion over breakfast, and both of us were reminded of the promise we had made to each other, and that's when everything changed for me. He convinced me to help him, to support him in funding social housing in South Africa. And when I went to South Africa the first time to visit him, and he took me to Acacia Place, one of those developments with 400 apartments he had built, it really struck me when I saw happy families who for the first time in their life moved in a regular apartment. I saw single parents. I saw kids for the first time sitting at a proper table doing their homework. It really struck me. It was such a contrast, or stark contrast, to what I was working on in Germany. I was predominantly focused on spreadsheets, shareholder value, multiples, blah, blah, blah. And here, it was about essential questions, whether or not you had a roof over your head. Something very, very different. Now, where does that take us? It ultimately takes us to a huge challenge, a lack of funding in Africa that my good friend Stein has experienced over the last 10, 15 years. And this is not something that is unreal. It is very real. It is persistent, it is measurable, and I would say it's systematic. let's have a little deeper look at that. If we look at venture capital spend in Africa as a continent, do you have a guess how much venture capital was spent in Africa, in the continent of Africa in 2024? Well, let me help you. It's $2.2 billion. At first sight, it looks like a large number, but when you start comparing it, it gets a little smaller. According to KPMG, in 2024, approximately $370 billion were spent in globally. The vast chunk of that, 60%, $222 billion, were spent in the US, $80 billion in Asia, $62 billion in Europe, $2 billion in Africa, which is less than 1%. And that is the order of magnitude we've seen over the last 10, 15 years. That is private markets. Now, if we look at capital markets, it's a similar picture. There's 26 stock exchanges in Africa with a combined market cap of 1.6 trillion. Again, looks like a large number, but if I compare it to my home country, Germany, the DAX 40, the largest 40 listed companies in Germany have a combined market cap of 2 to 2.5 trillion. If I look at the US, the combined market cap is in the order of 60 trillion. The slides I'm using to support my little presentation here, I've done with PowerPoint, software all of us know. If I look at Microsoft, just one company, to make this very explicit, Microsoft has a market cap of 3.8 trillion. That is more right now. It was 4 trillion at the end of July. That is 3 times the market cap of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange has a market cap of 1.2 trillion, 75% of the entire African market cap. We have a severe funding gap or capital gap in Africa, and that is a real problem. The backbone of African economies is, like in most countries, SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. They account for more than 80% of the jobs, but they only have access to no more than 20% of the capital, loans, equity available. Which means there's tens of thousands of enterprises or companies with real customers, real revenues, real growth plans, but no access to funds to capitalize on those growth plans. That's a severe issue, this capital gap. And we're running into a paradox because on the other hand, we have a significantly growing continent. Africa has 1.5 billion inhabitants, and the interesting thing about the population in Africa is 60% of the population are younger than 25. Very different to the US, very different to Europe and Asia. We have a vibrant, young, dynamic continent, but we have the paradox that this vibrant, young, dynamic continent doesn't get the funds they require. So what is the solution to that issue? Now, from my point of view, we'll not be able to resolve it with conventional capital markets, be it private equity, be it public equity, be it debt. The solution from our point of view, from frntr-X point of view, is that we need to bypass conventional markets to get funding into Africa. And I would like you to think about this not as some kind of abstract new technology, but to think about it as something I've been involved in for more than a decade. As early as 2013, I was engaged or involved in a crowdfunding in Germany. Back then, it was a company called Volocopter, battery-powered helicopters. Volocopter has since become one of the pioneers in urban air mobility. Crowd investing is around all over the place, in the US, in Europe, in Asia. crowd investing was a very good first step. It democratized access to investments. It democratized access to capital on a fairly small scale with limitations. No liquidity, no trading, frequently limited to just one jurisdiction. And we're now evolving into what I call crowd investing 2.0, and that is tokenization of real-world assets. The whole thing is suddenly getting significantly larger because with tokenization of real-world assets, we can basically address the entire planet. We can get efficiencies of scale. We get liquidity. We get instant settlement, etc., etc. So it's a means to really facilitate or to address this issue, the problem we have in Africa. And it's not theoretical. It is actually something we're seeing all over the place, and you are aware of that. If I go back to Germany, we have a company like Finexity, a platform for tokenization of real-world assets, and they have basically tokenized everything. Real estate is very common, but they've also tokenized cars, arts, etc., etc. They're fully regulated by BaFin. If you go to the US, you have someone like Securitize. They've tokenized equity and debt with a value of more than 4 billion. Again, they're fully regulated by the SEC. In Asia, you have someone like Air Carbon Exchange. They tokenize carbon credits. So it is a proven technology that is being deployed basically all over the world. And we're taking this technology to Africa. We're taking a proven technology, we're taking a copy and paste approach to be the first ones in Africa to offer tokenization services for companies to raise funds to capitalize their growth plans. So let me talk a little bit about more frntr-X, the company we're currently setting up. It's Sven-Roger, my classmate from Kellogg. He's been an entrepreneur and real estate developer for 40 years. A lot of experience in South Africa and beyond South Africa. It's myself, a lot of capital markets experience and private markets experience in Europe. And we have a team around us of technicians, blockchain experienced people, social media experienced people, as well as legally experienced people. We have a partner who provides us with a fully regulated license in South Africa by the Financial Services Conduct Authority. We have a so-called crypto assets services provider license, fully regulated, just like people in Germany by BaFin or by the SEC in the US. We're focusing our efforts on we're building our platform on the Solana blockchain. Solana to us means almost net cost transactions, immediate settlement. We could have used any other blockchain, I guess, but we have, or some of our folks have a lot of experience with Solana. That's why we're focusing on that. And very interesting to me, we have a large pipeline of issuers who want to use our platform to raise capital. We will start with a company called Africa Property Company. It's a company that Sven-Roger has a stake in, and we will start with tokenizing some of the assets, social housing, that we currently have in place, and assets we are intending to build. Now, why are we doing that? Because we want to make the proof of concept. These are assets, bricks, mortar, tenants, cash flows. So if you as an investor were to invest in one of these tokens, you will have immediate cash flows from the tokens. We want to make the proof of market, the proof of concept that frntr-X, the exchange for tokenization in Africa, does not only have a viable business model for itself, but it offers viable investment opportunities for investors. Beyond APC, Africa Property Company, we are currently talking to, or we have been approached by many businesses from the real estate world, infrastructure, mining, startups who are very eager to use a platform like frntr-X. And why is that? Because they've made the same experience that Stain has made over the last 15 years. Access to capital is just so extremely difficult to get. Now, and I would like to highlight, coming to the end, once again, what we're doing and what really intrigues me about this project or this initiative. This is a picture of Acacia Place, a development Stein and I have built in South Africa, a development with 400 apartments. The other one you saw on the slide before that is already up and running is a development with 1,100 apartments. The interesting thing about these is that we're taking land that used to be townships, shacks, and we turn it into regular apartments. You can see this on this picture actually. On the other side of the road down here, you still see the shacks. There used to be shacks here. They were torn down. We built the apartments and we had people move from the shacks into regular housing. And that is something that really intrigues me about tokenization in Africa, because it is not only about investment and return, but it is about impact and purposeful investments. All the investments that will be made, all the companies that will be funded via our exchange will have a significant impact on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. We will create apartments, we will create jobs, we will reduce CO2 emissions, and we will have an impact on wealth, education. From my point of view, every single project will probably address at least 50% of those 17 SDGs. So that is us, frntr-X. We are at the frontier. We have the technology, we have the team, we have the vision. We are currently looking for partners to join us, to help us build this business. We are intending to go live later this year or early next year. And we invite all of you to be part of that. Thank you for your interest.